Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
Okay, so today we're going to continue with I Have a Dream. I have added a couple of more rhetorical devices, and they're also in SMS. The first one is contrasting. Contrasting shows differences between two things that are related in some way. For example, in Dr. King's speech, he says, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners. Also judged by the content of their character instead of judged by the color of their skin. So he's using contrasting here. Rhetorical question. A rhetorical question is a question that someone asks without expecting an answer. For example, in his speech, he asked, when will you be satisfied? During the speech, he knows that no one's going to answer. So it's a question that he asks, but he answers himself. Then we have loaded language. Loaded language is wording that attempts to influence an audience by using appeal to emotion. It's a great example of how Dr. King inspired the crowd to not give up for what they believe in. If you read the following lines, 71 through 75, he says, the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. He also says, you have been the veterans of creative suffering. This is powerful because he acknowledges those who have been beat down and mistreated for just trying to stand up for what was right. It's one of the most powerful sections in the speech because police brutality is still a problem that we face today. Does anyone have any questions on these three rhetorical devices?
Miss,
Yes.
I don't understand loaded language.
Which one?
Loaded language.
Loaded language. Okay. Loaded language is words that someone uses. Remember, in a speech, and particularly in a persuasive speech, is what Dr. King gave. It's a persuasive speech. He's trying to get the people to change their minds about the way Blacks are treated and to give them their equal rights, the same as the white man, okay? So he uses lots of words that appeals to people's emotions. For example, persecution. This is when persecution is when people are treated very badly, okay? So when he brings up this word persecution, you should start thinking about how people are treated. Police brutality. He uses police brutality so that you will start thinking how the police are treating these people, okay? Suffering. Anytime you hear the word suffering, you know that this is a negative word. It means that someone is hurting. You understand?
Yes.
Okay, so just remember, loaded language is when someone uses words to appeal to your emotions. Sometimes it might make you feel good. It might have a positive connotation. But here, for example, all of these are negative: persecution, brutality, suffering. None of those are positive words. They're all negative words. And it makes you start thinking how people are punished, the suffering that they go through, the brutality from the police. You understand now better?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
All right, so I have, these are also an SMS. And the reason I wanted to bring these up today is because we have an analysis sheet. Let me show it to you. Can you see it? I Have a Dream by Martin Luther King is the speech.
No, we can.
Okay, hold on 1 minute. Okay, what about now?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Okay, all right. If you notice, this is a copy of the speech. And on the left and the right-hand side of the speech, you see these little square boxes, and each one has something written in it. For example, this one right here, reference to Lincoln's address at Gettysburg. We already know that this is the Emancipation Proclamation, okay? So what you're going to do, let's go to the bottom of the page for the directions. You need to use colored pencils, guys, okay? Because you're going to read the speech and look for the rhetorical devices that the author, Dr. King, used to persuade the audience. Use colored pencils to underline your answers. For example, you should use a red pencil to underline the references, a green pencil to underline the allusions. Does everyone understand?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, fine.
Okay. All right, so for example, right here, you would underline the Emancipation Proclamation with a red pencil. Okay? Also the next one, an allusion, Psalms 30, verse 5. This is a verse in the Bible, okay? So you know that's what you're going to look for next. And when you find it, you're going to underline it with a green pencil. Any questions? Here you have contrasting concepts, right here. When you find a contrasting concept, you're going to underline that in a yellow pencil, okay? Are there any questions about this?
No, thank you, Mr.
Okay, everyone understands? All right, you don't have to have that completed. I put it on your homework as Thursday, but I wanted to go over it with you just to make sure that everyone understood what they were supposed to be doing, okay? All right, so let's switch the screen again. And let's go back to the first page of the speech. I want to go over this one more time. Does anyone have any questions on page 602? Make sure you understand the vocabulary words momentous and default on this page. Make sure you know the date of when the speech was given and where it was given at. And I also would like for you to research and find out originally what this speech was supposed to be. I told you before that it was not supposed to be I Have a Dream speech, okay? So make sure you know that. The argument here, reread lines 8 through, I'm sorry.
Do you mean the name of the speech?
Yes, you have to know the name of the speech. Remember, I told you before that on this day, Dr. King was actually only supposed to speak for, I think it was 4 minutes, but he ended up, the speech was like 17 minutes long. But this was not the original reason why he was there to give this speech. This was just a last minute speech that he gave, okay? So you could truly say that this speech came from his heart. I mean, it was nothing that was pre-planned. All right. So that about covers that page. Does anyone have any questions? Is there anything in the speech that you don't understand? Make sure you remember things like the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Know what each one is, what it means. Make sure you understand about the bad check with the insufficient funds. All right, let's switch pages. Okay, on this page, you can see that there were more than 200,000 marchers that went to the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial, okay? All of these, or most of these people like this, these are civil rights leaders that marched with King. And of course, all these people here are people that came to listen to different civil rights speakers. Anything on this page that you don't understand? Everyone understands? Okay. All right. Make sure you remember here what he told his people about don't be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. Remember, he told them, do not resort to physical violence. He wanted this done in a peaceful way because he was not a man of violence at all, okay? All right, and then we have the last two pages. Here you can see on part C on the page, identify the examples of racial injustice that King provided as evidence to convince his audience to share his view. Remember, he used police brutality. He used the hotels and motels, the white signs only, okay? Did anyone find the answer about go back to Mississippi, go back to Alabama? Why he said those states in order? Jana?
Slim, I don't understand what is police brutality.
Police brutality, Jana, is when during this time, whenever the police would have a confrontation or they would go to arrest any Black person, they didn't just arrest them and take them to jail. Most of the time, they beat them. They were very brutal towards them. They would beat them really bad before they took them to jail. Sometimes they would kill them. So this is considered police brutality. You understand?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, bud. Are there any other questions? No one was able to find that answer? Keep looking, you'll find it. Remember also that I told you about this governor. His name was George Wallace. He was the governor of Alabama. And here, this is who he is speaking to when he says, I have a dream that one day down in Alabama with this vicious racist. Vicious racist means the worst kind of people that show racism, okay? And the governor of the state of Alabama was one of the worst, okay? Not just the people in Alabama, although there were many, but the governor himself, he was terrible, okay? And he says, I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with this vicious racist, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. Remember, the name of the governor was George Wallace, okay? Any questions on this page? Okay, and then we go to the last page. He said in the last paragraph on the preceding page, he said, this is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. Remember, the southern states then and even now were the most racist states. He says, with this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountains of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into jangling chords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. Now, right here, this is a great example of contrast. Here he's talking about the jangling discords that is going on, all the racial problems, and he says he hopes that they will be able to be transformed or changed into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. Does everyone understand this part? Jangling discords means that things are not right. And in this case, it's racism, okay? He wants to change that into a beautiful symphony, okay? So he's contrasting right here. All right, and then he says to be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, even to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day, okay? And then again here, he alludes to the Bible. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. This is a verse that comes from, this is not the verse itself, but there is a verse in the Bible that says all people are God's children, okay? And then he goes on to sing the Song of America, my country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside let freedom ring. And he says, and if America is to be a great nation, this has to come true. So then he goes on to say, let freedom ring from all these different places, okay? And he says in the end, when this happens, and we allow freedom to ring from every village, every state, every city, then we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Now here, a Negro spiritual is a song that Black people sing in their church. So again, he's alluding here to a song from religion, okay, a religious song. Any questions? Okay, so everyone understands this perfectly. All right, now let's go to our scavenger hunt. Okay, I want you to raise your hand if you're able to answer any of the questions, okay? The first one is, who is the great American? And related to that, where does this speech take place? Laura?
He's talking about Abraham Lincoln,
Yes.
and the
And where
speech
did the speech take place?
it take place on March on Washington.
Yes, at the Lincoln Memorial. Okay. Number 2. What does 5 years mean? And what is a word that is a synonym for this? For this. Adam?
5 years means 100 years, and a score year is equal to 20 years. A synonym for this phrase is a century.
Yes, you're exactly right. Okay. 5 years means 100 years, and a synonym is a century. Okay. Number 3, what metaphors are used to describe the problems that African Americans faced? Jenna?
Um, he said a speech as who had been seared in the flames of weathering injustice.
Okay. Anyone else have something else?
Yes.
Adam?
Miracles of segregation and change of discrimination.
Okay. Who else has something?
Me.
Laura?
He's using a metaphor that there's light in darkness, that light is shining in the darkness.
Okay. Anyone else? Often. Uta.
Miss Lynn, I have one.
Compares the
Often.
compares the slavery to the fire and the Emancipation Proclamation to the bacon and slavery to the long nights of captivity.
Okay. Farah, you said, is this Farah that has some?
Yes, Miss Me.
Okay, what is it, baby? What do you have?
That the king compares injustice and oppression to sweltering heat, and freedom and justice to an oasis.
Okay. All right. What about the metaphors he used for the promissory note, the bad check, and the insufficient funds? Don't forget about those. He also said there is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Okay. All right. Number 4. What 3 national documents are mentioned in the first part of the speech, and why are they capitalized? Farah Malab?
Yes, the Emancipation Proclamation and the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence.
Yes. And why are they capitalized, Farah?
Because they're proper nouns.
Yes. They are proper nouns that represent the words of special documents. Okay. The next one, number 5. What is a promissory note and what does it symbolize here? Afaduta.
The note was a promise that concluded all Americans would have the rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Right. Remember, a promissory note represents a debt that you owe, okay? And as Alfred says, relating to the speech, Dr. King says, in a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. And he goes on to say that the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, they signed a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. In other words, as Alfred just told us, all men had the rights to freedom, and they all had equal rights. No one in the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence has more rights than another. All men are created equal. And by the way, when I say all men, which is how it's written, we mean women also, not just men. I think you know that. Number 6, when Dr. King states this sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent, this is a direct reference to a Shakespearean play. Who can tell me what play he is referencing and how does the original line from Shakespeare read? Let's see. Yusuf Afila.
Okay, Miss. Martin Luther King alluded to Shakespeare play Richard II. Now is the winter discontent.
Okay. Yes, here Dr. King alluded to Shakespeare's tragedy, which is a play, and it's called Richard III. And he says, it says in this play, this sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn. Okay. Number 7, what phrase, which is actually 4 words, is repeated in the paragraph which starts, "We have also come." What one word in the first line of that paragraph sums up this sentiment? Bamika?
Now is the time.
Yes. And what's the one word?
Urgency.
Okay, what, does everyone agree? Does anyone have something different? Afa, Uta, did you get the same answer?
Yes.
Okay. Number 8, they have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. What does this mean? Their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. What does he mean here? Do you remember the word inextricably and what the definition is? No one?
Impossible to remove from each other.
Yes, inextricably means something that is, example, tangled together and it's extremely hard to separate. For example, let's say that you have 100 rubber bands and somehow, or paper clips, and somehow they got all mixed together and attached to each other, and it's almost impossible for you to separate them all, okay? So that's basically what inextricably means. He's saying here that the white man's freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. In other words, he is saying you cannot separate it. It is all one, the white and the black freedom, okay? List at least 4 specific injustices listed in the speech that African Americans faced back then. Hannah Yasser?
Police brutality, the isolation or the segregation, their bad homes, which were referred to as ghettos. They were also they were no voting for them. They were discriminated against. There also was when he said also they were teaching their children about the whites only signs.
Yes.
Which means like only whites can do this and whites can do this. Black is bad. White is good. White is always associated with good connotations, and black is with the denotations. And also, they were not allowed to vote. Did I say this?
Yes, that's okay.
Okay, sorry.
Good answer, Hannah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So as Hannah said, police brutality, segregation in motels and hotels. Who can tell me what segregation means? Laura?
Hello? It's
Yes,
when
Laura.
you keep people separate.
Yes, it's when you take people and you separate them from others, which is exactly what happened to the Negroes during this time. They were kept separate from the white men, okay, or the white people. They couldn't use the same bathrooms. They could not eat in the same restaurants. Everything that Hannah just said, this was completely separated between blacks and whites, okay? All right, the next question. This is a section where the phrase, I have a dream, is repeated. How many times? And summarize what it is that King dreams. Farah Malab?
Yes, Muslim.
Can you answer that one?
Yeah, it's repeated 8 times. And his dream is that everyone would be treated equally, and that in Georgia, sons of former slaves and sons of former slave owners will be friends, and that Mississippi will be flooded by justice, and that his 4 children will be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. And in Alabama, little white boys and little white girls will be friends with the black boys and girls.
Right. It was repeated 8 times. And his dream was that the nation would rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. What is its creed? Exactly what is written in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Everything that Farah said is exactly, he wanted racism and segregation to end. And that included everything that Farah just told us about, okay? What does King want his children to be judged for? Bamika?
To be judged on their content of their character, on the content of their character, and not by the color of their skin.
Exactly. He wants his children, and not just his children, all black children, to be judged by their character, not by only the color of their skin, okay? All right, Abdullah, number 12, it says that King refers to geological features several times. List the proper nouns that refer to this, and then list some of the common nouns. So Abdullah, give us 3 proper nouns and 3 common nouns. Abdullah, can you hear me?
Yes, Miss Sun, just 1 second. I'm
Okay.
getting the document.
So 3 proper nouns and 3 common nouns about geological places. Adam, can you help?
3 proper nouns and 3 common nouns, right?
Yes.
The first proper noun, New York Mountains.
Okay.
The second one, alligators of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And the Rockies Mountains of Colorado.
Okay.
The common nouns, hilltops, or the curvaceous slopes.
Okay.
Or molehills.
Okay. So the proper nouns, there was a whole list. Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, New York, New Hampshire, California, Georgia. Okay, it goes on and on. Some of the common nouns. What about the slums and ghettos of our northern cities? What about from every mountainside, from every village and every hamlet? Everyone understand this? Thank you, Avram. And finally,
You're
we
welcome,
have number
Miss.
13. The phrase, let freedom ring, is repeated for emphasis. What word found in the quoted verse of the song America is a synonym for freedom? Abatella, can you tell me? Ahmed Magdi, can you tell me?
Yes, miss.
Okay, can you answer number 13? What word found in the quoted verse of the song America is a synonym for freedom? Afaduta, can you tell us?
The phrase "let freedom ring" comes directly from the song America, and the word that means freedom is liberty.
Yes, the word that means freedom, that is a synonym for freedom is liberty. Okay? All right, any questions about the scavenger hunt?
Yeah, Miss, can you repeat number 7?
Number 7. What phrase is repeated in the paragraph which starts, "We have also come"? What word in the first line of that paragraph sums up this sentiment? Who can answer? Who can answer number 7? Bamika?
Now is the time, and the one word is.
Speak up a little louder, baby.
Now is the time, the face, and the one word is urgency.
The one word is what?
Urgency.
Yes, urgency. Did you get it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome, babe. Any other questions on the scavenger hunt? Okay. All right, so do you have any more questions about "I have a dream" speech? Okay, basically the only thing we have left to do is today for your homework, you have the argument worksheet to complete an SMS. And for the rest of the week, we'll just review your homework because we're finished as far as I'm concerned, unless you have any questions about the speech itself, okay? The analysis sheet, like I told you, is your homework on Thursday. The rest is your comprehension sheets. You have a guided reading sheet. Everything is in SMS. And of course, it's on your weekly schedule when each one is due. Any questions, guys? Bamika?
This SMS is having a lot of problems.
I can't hear you, Babby.
SMS is having a lot of problems.
Who is?
SMS, Smart School.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's lagging a lot, not with many people.